This bird is everywhere. You've never actually seen it. You've walked past it 1,000 times, on power lines, sidewalk cracks, the edge of a parking lot, and believed you understood it. A gentle bird, unremarkable. But that quiet familiarity has been hiding something extraordinary, and the more closely researchers look, the stranger this animal becomes. There are roughly 350 million mourning doves in North America alone. That number is not a background statistic. It means that for every person living in the United States, there is approximately one of these birds. They are, by nearly every metric, the most abundant migratory bird on the continent, and yet most people could not tell you a single accurate thing about how they live. The answer to why that is, and what is actually going on behind that soft, mournful call, is stranger than anything you've been told. Stay with this, because it changes everything. If what you're about to learn sounds like the kind of thing that should have been in every nature documentary you've ever watched, that's because it should have been. Subscribe now. This channel exists to find the hidden architecture beneath the familiar, and the Mourning Dove is the perfect place to start. This channel is dedicated to one thing, revealing the natural world as it actually is, not as it appears from a distance. Every script here is built from peer-reviewed research, field studies, and the kind of behavioral science that rarely makes it outside academic journals. The tone is cinematic because the science earns it. The first and most grounding truth about the mourning dove is that it is a bird of extraordinary sensory architecture. Most people assume its perceptual world is roughly similar to their own, perhaps a little sharper, a little faster. The reality is structurally different. The mourning dove possesses eyes positioned so far to the sides of its skull that it can see nearly 340 degrees of its environment simultaneously, leaving only a narrow blind spot directly behind its head. This is not an advantage born of predation. It is the visual field of an animal that has been hunted for millions of years. What this means, practically, is that when a mourning dove appears to be staring at nothing, motionless on a branch, half closed, it is processing a panoramic field of visual data that no human brain could hold. Researchers at the University of California, Davis, documented this response architecture in 2014, noting that the bird's retinal processing speed is measurably faster than that of most songbirds. Stand near one on a quiet morning and understand, it has already mapped every exit. The second thing you need to know about the mourning dove is the one that will not fit neatly into what you thought you knew about birds. The mourning dove produces milk. Not metaphorically, not in the way that phrase is sometimes stretched, literal crop milk. A protein and fat-rich secretion produced in the lining of the bird's crop, generated by both the male and the female, and fed directly to their young. This substance, documented extensively in comparative avian physiology literature, contains immunoglobulins, immune system proteins that transfer passive immunity from parent to chick in a manner that was once thought exclusive to mammals. A 2016 study published in BMC Genomics found that the gene expression patterns driving crop milk production in doves share striking parallels with those driving mammalian lactation, a case of convergent evolution so precise that researchers described it as one of the most unexpected molecular overlaps in vertebrate biology. Think about what that means. At 3 in the morning, while you were asleep, a mourning dove sitting in the hedgerow outside your window was producing a substance structurally analogous to the milk in your refrigerator, feeding it silently to a chick the size of your thumb. What makes this more unsettling is the speed at which it all happens. A mourning dove pair can go from egg-laying to fledgling departure in as few as 25 days. They can raise up to 6 clutches in a single year. The mathematics of that reproduction rate, when applied to a population of 350 million birds, describe a biological engine of almost industrial scale, running silently in the background of ordinary suburban afternoons. The third thing requires you to follow a sequence. Picture a hawk, a Cooper's hawk specifically, the specialist predator most likely to hunt mourning doves in a residential area. The hawk commits to an attack. The dove, with its 340-degree visual field, has already registered the movement. In the first scenario, the dove explodes upward at nearly 55 miles per hour, a burst of acceleration so violent that it produces the sharp whistling sound from its wings that many people mistake for a distress call, but which is actually a byproduct of feather shape. No evidence remains. The hawk banks away empty. In the second scenario, the hawk approaches from the narrow blind spot, that sliver of dead visual space behind the skull. The dove does not see it. There is a burst of feathers. The feathers are designed to detach, a mechanism called fright molt, documented in columbidae across multiple studies, in which the bird sheds a controlled volume of feathers under stress, potentially startling the predator long enough for escape. The dove may survive, it may not. Either way, within hours, the feathers are gone, pressed into the soil or carried off by secondary scavengers. There is no trace. In the third scenario, the one that leaves nothing at all, a ground-level strike occurs before the dove has lifted. It is over before the wing beat begins. By morning, the evidence has been consumed, scattered or rained away. You walk past that spot at noon and see an ordinary patch of grass. This is the category of disappearance that has no witness and no record. The bird was there, then it wasn't. The world offers no explanation. What all three of these mechanisms reveal, taken together, is that the mourning dove exists in a perpetual negotiation between visibility and vanishing. Its abundance is not proof of safety. It is the statistical output of a mortality rate so high that sheer reproductive volume compensates for constant loss. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology estimates that hunters alone harvest more than 20 million mourning doves per year in the United States, making it the most heavily hunted migratory bird in North America. Add natural predation, window strikes, and habitat loss, and the picture becomes clear. You are not looking at a bird that thrives because life is easy. You are looking at a bird that thrives because it reproduces faster than it disappears. For something so present, you were right to sense that it is always already leaving. That instinct was accurate, but now a deeper question opens. Because scientists spent decades assuming the mourning dove's social and emotional life was as simple as its behavior appeared. A bird of habit, monogamous by convenience, not design, vocalizing for territory, not for meaning. That assumption has been systematically dismantled over the past 15 years, not by one dramatic study, but by a slow accumulation of findings that have forced a reconsideration of what the word pair bond actually means in avian biology. What follows is more surprising than anything in the predation data. The mourning dove mates for life, or something that, under controlled study conditions, looks so close to for life that the distinction may be meaningless. A 2011 long-term field study from the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology tracked individually banded dove pairs across multiple breeding seasons and found that pair reformation rates exceeded 85% following a season of separation. The birds were not simply defaulting to the nearest available partner. They were, by behavioral and spatial evidence, locating the same individual. The male's distinctive call, that four-note descending phrase most people mishear as an owl, functions not just as a territorial marker but as an individual identity signal, spectrographically unique enough that researchers could distinguish individuals with the same reliability as fingerprints. In 2019, researchers at Duke University's Nicholas School of the Environment published findings in Animal Behavior, showing that mourning doves display measurable behavioral changes following the death of a partner, reduced foraging efficiency, altered roosting positions, and a statistically significant delay before forming new bonds. The paper was careful, the researchers were careful. They did not use the word grief. They described what they observed, a disruption of behavioral baseline that persisted beyond the immediate survival-relevant period. Whether that disruption constitutes something an animal experiences rather than simply expresses is a question the data cannot answer, and that restraint is the most important thing about the finding. The science shows the behavior. It cannot show what it means to the bird. Here is where intellectual honesty requires a pause. Much of what circulates about mourning dove emotions or loyalty is anecdotal. Birdwatchers reporting what appears to be mourning behavior, pairs returning to the same nesting site for years, doves sitting motionless beside dead partners. These observations are real. Their interpretation is not settled. What the peer-reviewed record contains is behavioral data. What it does not contain is a resolved answer to whether any of that behavior is accompanied by something we would recognize as inner experience. That question is genuinely open. Ornithologists at institutions, including Oxford's Edward Gray Institute and the Cornell Lab, have called for longer-term, individually tracked field studies before any stronger claims can be made. This is the honest position. The bird's behavior is extraordinary. The explanation for that behavior remains one of biology's genuinely unresolved problems. So here is what you actually know now. The bird on your power line is not passive. It is processing a visual panorama you cannot access, communicating through a voice print as unique as your own, producing a substance analogous to mammalian milk in the dark, reproducing at a rate that compensates for a mortality pressure most animals would not survive. It is, in the most precise scientific sense, succeeding, and it has been doing this in full view the entire time. But the deeper truth, the one that returns you to the question you started with, is this. You thought this bird was familiar. You thought familiar meant understood. And now you know that the distance between those two words is where all the actual biology lives. The mourning dove has been everywhere you've ever been. You have never seen it. Have you ever watched a mourning dove for more than a minute? Not glanced at one, watched one. Tell me where you were, what the bird was doing, how long it stayed, and whether it seemed to notice you. Drop it in the comments exactly as it happened. I read everyone, and the observations that don't fit the standard narrative are the ones I build the next script from.